Hi guys, I wanted to make a video about my journey as a photographer so far in my life. I get a lot of questions from people about this, wanting to know if I studied photography in school, what freelancing is like, what my first job doing photography was like. So I thought I would make a video to try to sum it all up. Of course, this is summarizing 10 years of my journey in my life. So I'm gonna do my best to kind of keep it short and sum it up, but it is gonna be a long video and I'm gonna try to cover everything. But if you guys end up having more questions, feel free to leave a comment and I will do my best to answer them. I also just want to say that I have a long way to go in my journey. By no means am I anywhere near done. I do have some really big goals of the photographer that I'd like to be in the future. I hope this video can help others that are interested in photography. Everyone's story is different. Everyone gets to different chapters in their life on their own time, and I don't think it's healthy to compare yourself to other people. If you work hard, everyone can get there, so don't compare yourself to others. So I'll start off with my interest in photography as a kid. When I was in middle school, probably like 13 or 14 years old, my grandpa gifted me all of his old 35mm film cameras and lenses, and he taught me how to use them. He was really big into photography when he was younger and even still now. Around the same time in middle school, I got a really cheap like point and shoot digital camera for my birthday one year that I ended up taking everywhere with me. I would ride my bike around the neighborhood, take photos of my Converse, my bicycle, the grass, the sky, flowers, stuff like that. I remember editing them in the camera's menu settings in like sepia tones. Around this time is when I was like really into learning how to edit on a website called Picnic. Shout out if you remember Picnic. I would bring all of these photos I took on my digital camera into Picnic, add text, add filters, like learned how to do spot removal on Picnic, like stains off shirts. I even started a Facebook page encouraging people to like hire me to edit their photos on Picnic for like $1. So yeah, I guess I've just always kind of had an interest in photography and editing from the very beginning. Also in my 7th grade art class, we had access to Photoshop. I think it was CS3 at the time. So I was just learning how to use Photoshop when I was like 12 or 13 years old. I was photoshopping my face onto Bella Swans from Twilight. Kind of over the years, I grew more interested in it, especially in high school. So in high school, I worked as a cashier at a grocery store. I eventually saved up enough money to buy my first DSLR. My first camera was a Nikon D3100, and I just got the 18 to 55mm kit lens that came with it. So I was about 16 or 17. I had just gotten my first DSLR, and I begged all of my friends to like model for me at little photo shoots. So we'd always just put on a bunch of crazy outfits, get in my car, drive around our little small town, go to the beach, go to random fields, and put on some photo shoots. They were not great by any means, but I mean, I was really excited about it and I found something that I was like finally passionate about. I was gearing up to start applying to colleges and I had no idea what I wanted to pursue. So I'm glad that I kind of discovered photography at the same time. So at this time, I was still shooting in automatic mode. I didn't know how to shoot in manual. I also took my camera around town to the beach, took a lot of landscape photos, entered them into some like local newspaper photography contests and won, so that was exciting. And when I was like 17, I kind of started getting my first paid jobs. I was being hired by my parents' friends. They paid me like $30 to $50. I think some of the first paid work I did was taking photos for a local church. One of my neighbors hired me to shoot him speaking at a conference. So like I said, I was gearing up to get ready to go to college. Didn't really know what I wanted to pursue, but I knew that I loved photography. So I looked into the photography program at the school I ended up going to. I went to Florida State University in Tallahassee. My major was studio art. And once you're in the studio art program, you choose what focus area of art you want to pursue. I chose photography. I think my like freshman or sophomore year, I took a digital art class where we really focused on using Photoshop. I did a lot of photo manipulation with my own photography. My professor ended up encouraging me to submit one of my class projects to a local gallery exhibition, which I ended up getting chosen for. So that was really cool. Throughout my time in college, I had my photos in a couple more exhibitions. That was really exciting, especially, you know, as a beginning photographer. By my end of my sophomore year, junior year of college, I was able to take the more advanced photography classes. The photography program at my school was pretty small, but there was a good variety of classes to take. My favorite class that I took was a studio photography class. So there was a studio that we had access to that was equipped with all kinds of backdrops, different strobe lights, gels, all kinds of equipment that our professor taught us how to use. And we were able to like rent out that studio space for projects, both for class and outside of class. Definitely my favorite part of the program. And then I also took some darkroom film classes where we shot black and white film, developed them in the darkroom. So throughout all of these photo classes, each one we had lots of projects to do. do. And when we were finished with them, we would have a critique day where we'd hang up our art on the walls and everyone, including the professor, would give us constructive criticism. I thought this was really great in college, especially when I was still learning. So one thing I do want to say about my program is that I feel like it was pretty fine art oriented. I love doing portraits, I love doing women's fashion, but that's definitely not what everyone was doing in my program, which is totally fine. But I did kind of feel like an outsider a little bit, because sometimes when I'd hang up my work for critique, my peers would say things like, oh, the photos are really good, but they just look like an Urban Outfitters ad, like I've seen them before. And I understand that that was supposed to be helpful criticism for me to like be more creative and more artistic, but like in the end, I would love to work for a brand like that, and that's the type of work I want to do. So one of my professors in college was really encouraging to me. He kind of took me under his wing, let me explore portraits, women's fashion, that kind of stuff that I really wanted to do. He critiqued me, so I'm really grateful for his mentorship. So throughout my time in these photography classes in my program, I was also learning how to use Lightroom. I learned a lot more about Photoshop. I learned a lot more about how to shoot in manual. If you take away one thing from this video and you're deciding whether or not to go to school, if you are going to school, I would suggest, if your plan is to be a freelance photographer one day, to take as many business and entrepreneurship classes as you can while you're in school. I decided really late in my college career to take on an entrepreneurship minor, and that was probably one of the smarter decisions I made in college. So I did take a few classes on entrepreneurship. I learned a little bit in college, but not much. I wish I could go back and take more of those classes, because as it turns out, now I'm a freelance photographer and I'm running my own business, and it's a lot harder than I thought. But I also kind of want to talk about the things that I did outside of school that also helped me in my career. So during my time as a student at FSU, I was very involved in student-run fashion magazines on campus. So there were quite a few magazines that were run by students, created by students, and it would just be a team of creative directors, writers, graphic designers, photographers, all kinds of kids that were interested in this industry. We'd all get together and plan a magazine issue. So at first as a freshman, I was chosen to shoot like headshots and some like little things for the magazines. But as I improved, I was finally chosen to do some more of the women's editorials, men's editorials, and even covers for some of these issues. I really loved doing this so much for the magazines that I started kind of creating my own photo shoots for fun on the side with my friends, doing the same sort of thing, coming up with mood boards and concept, exploring on the side to improve my portfolio as well. I did one internship when I was in college. I moved to Los Angeles for a summer for a culture and art and music magazine. I ended up not being able to do as much photography as I thought I was going to be able to do, but I still learned a lot about the industry, and I got to take some photos that ended up being published in their magazine, which was pretty cool. It was unpaid and I didn't really get to do that much photography. I kind of wish I had pursued something that would get me a lot more hands-on photography experience, especially in Los Angeles. Also, during my 4 years at FSU, I was also starting to take on freelance gigs, mostly graduation sessions. My freshman year, I had a couple of clients. I was charging like $50 a shoot. And as the years went on, I kept raising my prices because I kept improving at the same time. I started getting more clients. And then by the time I was a senior, I was booked up a semester in advance and had to turn down clients because I had so many. So by offering these graduation sessions, I started to learn a lot about the business side of photography. I made a lot of mistakes. I didn't have my clients ever sign a contract when I was first starting. I kind of just didn't really know what I was doing, but that's kind of just how it is when you first start. You have to learn lessons the hard way, and I still am learning lessons the hard way to this day. So I think these 4 years in college were a really big growth period for me. The photography classes I took, that taught me a lot on the technical side, doing my creative shoots with the magazines, and then offering paid sessions with clients in my area taught me a lot about business. A lot of people ask me if I think going to college for photography is worth it. It's really hard for me to answer that because it depends on your learning style. It depends on the program that the school offers. If you're going to an art school, it's probably a lot different than my experience at a public university. So I don't think it's really a yes or no question. I think that there's a lot of factors that go into making that decision. However, I do want to point out that every photographer that you probably know offers some kind of educational resources, whether that's online workshops, mentorships, educational guides. None of that really existed when I was in school, at least not that I knew of. You can learn so much from all of these online resources, whether it's YouTube or lynda.com courses, or purchasing assets from other photographers like online guides, or flying out to attend a workshop. If you invest your money in this sort of thing, that gets you a lot more hands-on experience working with photographers that create the work that you want to be doing one day. The resources that are available now need to be taken advantage of. If you're kind of deciding whether to go to school or not, you have both choices. Okay, so after college, I graduated from Florida State in May 2017, and I had no idea what to do. I started applying to so many jobs online, and I kind of felt like I just really needed a job lined up as soon as graduation happened. All of my friends and everyone I knew was posting on Facebook or Instagram about some new job that they were just offered and where they were moving, or that they were gonna go attend grad school and get their master's. I knew I didn't want to go back to school because I wanted to just do photography, but I also was like too afraid to fully pursue a freelance career. I felt like I needed a 9-to-5 salary job doing photography, which is so hard to find. Most big companies hire photographers on a freelance basis. However, I was determined to find a job like this, so I was applying to so many jobs, not being interviewed or considered for any of them. I was starting to feel really down on myself. That summer of 2017, I shot literally every day. So around this time, I was starting to really get the hang of editing and shooting and what my style looked like. I finally upgraded to a full frame camera, my Canon 5D Mark III that I still use right now. I just gathered all my friends and was like, hey, I really just want to shoot this summer. Practicing things that I was kind of more comfortable doing, like direct sunlight or shooting at nighttime or using props and stuff like that. So I just shot literally every day that summer, and I grew so much by doing that. So like I said, I was afraid to make the jump to freelance. I had this idea in my head that I had to have a full-time job because I had a bachelor's degree, but I knew in my heart that what I loved doing was running my own business. But I just told myself that I wasn't ready to do it full-time. I was afraid that if I left my college town, I wouldn't have any business in another city. I'd have to start all over. I was just really afraid to make that jump, even though I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So around this time, I reached out to my friend from high school who is really big into fashion, and I asked her what she was doing, and she told me that she was moving to Spain to be an au pair. And she said, hey, Marina, do you want to come with me? And I was like, you know what? Sure. And I ended up having a few other friends that were living in Barcelona at the same time, which is so random. So I decided to do it. So I moved there for 3 months and lived with the host family and had a little group of friends who were all into photography and fashion. And we just shot for those 3 months all the time. And I learned a lot. And it was so fun to build my portfolio in a new place, as beautiful as Barcelona is. So while I was in Barcelona, I was still applying to jobs back in the US online until I finally found one that was in Utah. So yeah, and then at the same time, my boyfriend actually traveled there and he fell in love with it, and he was like, we have to move here. And I was like, I have a good feeling about it, even though I've never even been there. So I started an interview process with this job, came back to the States, ended up flying out to Utah to interview, meet the company, do a bunch of test shoots for them. They ended up offering it to me. So in February 2018, I packed up everything in Florida and moved to Utah. So it was a full-time in-house photography position for a children's clothing company. My role was to shoot all the imagery for social media, marketing, website use. 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, I was taking photos of little babies wearing cute clothing. And then on the weekends, I started to attend all of these meetups and kind of expand my portfolio for Utah. I wanted to look like a Utah photographer. So I started going to all these locations on the weekends, messaging models on Instagram in the area, asking if they'd be interested in collaborating with me. That's kind of how I started to get my name out there in Utah. After a full year of doing this, of working at my job, hustling on the weekends and weeknights, I finally had kind of started to build a name for myself, and I got a lot of inquiries from potential clients wanting to book me. And it kind of came to a turning point. I couldn't do both anymore. It just kind of happened so fast. I really thought I was going to be working at this job for a few years before I was able to establish myself, but it happened so fast. Luckily, the community here in Utah is so big. My 1-year work anniversary was the day I decided that I was ready to leave and work for myself. I feel like when you are at a crossroads to make a decision like this, you're never gonna feel ready. It doesn't matter how much experience you have, where you are in your life, it's always gonna be scary and you're never gonna really feel ready. There was a lot of tearful phone calls to my best friends and my mom and my dad, and I was afraid, just like I was afraid when I graduated college. But this time I told myself that I couldn't be afraid and that everything was gonna be okay. I was devoting like 10% of my energy to freelancing on the weekends. And I knew that if I could devote 110%, I would be successful. I just had to have the time to do it. So I decided to leave my job, and that was exactly 1 year ago. I am so much happier now, but I also work 10 times harder. I work longer days at my desk, staring at a screen, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, it never feels like work to me because I love it so much. I'm so grateful that I'm able to wake up each morning and run my own business and be my own boss. I do weddings, engagements, portrait sessions, women's fashion, commercial work, and I'm able to travel all over the country for work. I found that educating other photographers is seriously something that I love doing. I sell educational resources to other photographers. So I've come such a long way in these 10 years. It's been a lot of ups and downs since I first got those film cameras from my grandpa. I have really big dreams though. I'm nowhere near being done. I would love to travel between New York and LA and shoot for big brands. So I have a long way to go before I get there, but I know that if I continue working my butt off, I'll be able to do it. Remember, like I said, everyone's story is different. Just continue working hard and you'll be able to get where you want to be one day. Remember that overnight success isn't real when it comes to this kind of thing. What may look like overnight success to you could really be 10 years of really hard work. I wish you guys all the best in your own journeys. If you have any more questions, leave a comment and I'm happy to answer. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Bye.